Okay,
Okay,
this is the duly noticed meeting, excuse me, of the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers. It's Saturday, August 23rd. That's approximately 10 a.m. Just want to remind everybody that this is being recorded. So anything that you say will be on the record. And if you are at home and don't want to have your video on because there's something in the room that might be reflected in the video, certainly cover it up or mask your video. I'm Peter Halley, the chairman of the group. Let's go around and establish that we have a quorum.
Patty Doyster, Donna Martino,
Gary Beller,
Gene Briskman, Scowl, Louis Pisano.
Lynn Philipsky,
Peter Kahn,
Steve Perlman.
Kathy Baird.
Okay, we have a quorum
We do.
and
names on.
I would,
Whoops.
we have, oh, that's right. We have Michael Cody
And Don Green.
participating virtually and Donald Green participating. And that's what we have so far in
Right.
terms of groups. So we have a good.
Everybody
turnout.
except Pam is accounted for,
And
and Bill Gardner.
do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? So,
So
moved.
and everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Favor?
Approved.
Okay. Okay, so we are now at the point where we can welcome our guest speaker today. David, if you'd like to take a chair, that'd be great. We're fortunate to have David Gray, who is the director of the sewer department for the town of Nantucket, with us today. He's been director since 2016, so getting close to his 10th year in that position. But he's been an employee of the sewer department since 2008 and held a variety of jobs that one would expect a director, especially one who's survived 9 years, to have gone through and understood and perhaps improved. So he's had multiple roles and been a director a long time, but that public service doesn't start or end with the department. He has been a volunteer firefighter on the island and retired after 41 years of being a volunteer as a lieutenant in that group.
Thank you.
And then even before that, he did national service in the United States Air Force, where he was a security police officer and in the reserves, I guess it was.
Active and reserve.
Active and reserves. So we're happy that you're, thank you for your public service. Probably you get that an awful lot. And we're happy that you're here to speak with us. And I guess what we're wanting to do, I don't think we've had anybody, we've certainly not in my years here on this committee, I don't think we've seen anybody from your department before. And the sewer department is just an important part of civic life here or any place else. It creates or maintains or makes possible wherever there's a lot of people living in one place fairly close together for healthy conditions. And my experience on the island has been, I think since I bought here about 17, 18 years ago, we've always been on the sewer one way or another and never had a complaint. Thank you for that. But David, if you'd just sort of tell us where the sewer department is, where it's going, and what the issues are that are you think ought to be of interest to us.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I do know a couple people here over my years. I was born and raised here and spent a little bit of time off when I was in the military. But other than that, I've pretty much spent my entire life here. I started with the sewer department in 2008 during the big economic issues that were going on. I was a plumbing contractor at the time. And the town asked me if I'd be interested, and I said, sure, because it was, it was tough times then. And I was originally hired as an electrician mechanic, when all my master plumber gas fitter. So I worked my way up through, all the way through all the different positions, chief operator, and then now director in 2016. The sewer department used to be part of the DPW. We were all one big group, and it got to the point where sewer alone was probably half or more of what they did, and we needed to be more concentrated on what we were doing. So currently I have a staff of 13. Right now I have 2 interns this year from Northeastern University that are here for 6 months. 2 incredible young ladies that are teaching us some amazing stuff with technology and everything else that they've gone through. We've been taken in every year at town meeting or in the paper or at select board meetings. You always hear us talking about CMOM, capacity maintenance, operation and management of the collection system and the treatment plant and everything else. In 2018, when we had the force main failure, that's a year I don't ever want to relive, but we did what we had to do to keep everybody safe. And that kind of opened up a lot of eyes on us specifically, because they were wanting to know most of the infrastructure in the town in Nantucket core area and Sconset is 100 years old or older. And the stormwater systems are even older. So it put a lot of eyes on us to see what was going on. So that's why we had to go in and do these programs. So we've up to date cameraed and inspected almost every mile of sewer on the island. And after the inspection's done, we get a report, a very, very detailed report of what conditions are in the pipes. Is there a crack here? Is there a hole there? It's all done on a specific scoring program done by NASCO with North American Sanitary Sewer Company operators. And once we get that report, we look at it and we see what the scoring is. If it's a 5, a 3, 4, or 5, those are our high priority areas that we look at. The 1 and 2s we know can either be just spot repaired or lined. A 4 or 5 says it needs to be either removed and completely replaced, increased in size, etc. So that's what we've been focusing on a lot for the last 8 years anyways, to see what's going on. And I've been the one digging up all the roads everywhere. So, and that draws a lot of questions, especially for the folks that live in the core area and everything like that. We've rebuilt all the sidewalks when we went through. I don't know if there's anyone that lives in that route of the force main, but everything in the road when we went through has been replaced. We replaced water, sewer, and stormwater. Only way to do it, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to go in and do one utility, don't do anything else, have to come back and dig it up again. So we did everything at the same time. And it's really helped working with Mark Willett over at the water company and our stormwater manager who works under me to get everything in place, modern technology that'll last 50 years or more. And we removed a lot of old water services. Some were still lead. We pulled a lot of those out for the water company. And the sewer main itself was 104 years old. So we've increased pipe size everywhere we go when we do a project now. If it's a 6-inch main, which believe it or not, a lot of main streets have just a 6-inch pipe, we increase it automatically based on what the population is in the area and the bedroom count and stuff like that. So we usually go never more minimum than a 10-inch pipe. And it's usually a lot bigger than that going forward. And what we do then is to every single lot is we replace a brand new 6-inch stub to everyone's lot with a clean out. That way there's nothing old in the streets. Everything usually from the property line to the home is where now the residents will have to handle if there's something going on. We also now operate the stormwater division of the town. That was recently given over to us about a little over a year or so ago. And we have a stormwater manager, Charles Johnson, who was my engineer for 6 years before he went over to the stormwater half. And to know how old the sewers were and then now to get into the stormwater, it's even more eye-opening. And, back in the day, when they were taking and trying to get rid of stormwater or something, they would go in a straight line as long as they had pitch. Well, the straight lines nowadays have houses on them, and they've, all the lots have been broken up, so we run into a lot of easement issues. Where there's actually no easement, for the town infrastructure that's there. So we try to improve all of that, try to figure if there's a way to go around something. So there's a lot going on right now with our department. You always will see the guys out and about. They're always usually looking in the manhole. They have the jet truck out or the vac truck, and we're always trying to maintain everything the best we can. Our mission is to keep the environment safe and keep everyone else safe. That's why when the force main failed downtown, my decision to take and divert the flow from all the streets and flooding everyone's home into the harbor made the most sense to me, and to try to protect everyone in the downtown area. When I had to call the state and the federal government with that, they were like, what do you want to do? It's like, and I gave them the scenario and they were like, well, we can't tell you that's okay, but you do what you think you have to do. So that's what we did. And we probably saved a lot of home flooding and everything else like that, but it wasn't a very easy decision, but I thought at the time it was the right thing to do. Currently, we are planning on starting to complete all the asphalt paving and everything, starting right after Labor Day on the whole route from all the way from the C Street pump station up to South Shore. The plan is right after Labor Day, you're gonna start to see crews in, starting to bring all the frames and covers, the manhole frames and covers to the surface. Right now, most of them are paved over because it's easier to pave that way. But the final product, you want to have them raised, and so that they can be paved right up to them, so you get the grade down right where it needs to be. So that's gonna be starting pretty soon. And it'll be all final paved, the whole route, which is gonna take and clean up a lot of the areas. People say, oh, the sidewalks, the curbing's too high. We're gonna be adding about another 2 inches of asphalt, so the profile on the curbing is gonna change quite a bit to improve everything. We worked very closely with the Historic Commission and the Historic Committee. We had meetings with them. I don't know how many, can't tell you how many meetings we had. So that when we put the town back together, we put it back together the best we could, the way it was. Some of the sidewalks, the widths changed and we made them smooth and got rid of some root problems in some sidewalks and gave us some areas where you had some not 100% ADA compliant, but we at least had some ramps and transitions and stuff like that improved it. We did have some folks wanted us to put the bricks back the way they were, bumpy and crooked and everything else, and we just couldn't do that. So a lot went into it. We actually had to number and label and inventory every single curbing and everything to put back. And that's what we met with the Historic Commission. And I was born and raised here. I know what needs to be done. And I was brought up on Westchester Street. So that's where I grew up. And it was a matter of returning it back to as close as we possibly could. So I know there's been a lot of discussion in the papers nowadays and everywhere else in national news, PFAS. The worst 4-letter words you could ever ask for. And we've been testing, we're getting ready to start our 4th year of testing next week. We've been testing wastewater. And we started it, I went to a conference as a guest speaker. I don't know if it was a Chicago conference or what, and just to take and it was emerging and it was really starting to come to light. And it's like, well, we need some data. We need to know what's going on, what's hitting us. And so we test every single waste stream coming into the facility. That includes septic trucks, carpet cleaners, the people that bring in the brew waste, landfill leachate. So we now have 3 years worth of data on what the loading is of PFAS hitting the facility, where it's coming from. We don't get into his point is it's coming from your house or your house. We'll go to a central manhole on a main that would serve a pump station. So we know, okay, that manhole is a hot spot before the pump station. And then we can kind of expand out further into neighborhoods if we need to. There is quite a bit of PFAS just in the regular municipal sewage, but it's not as high a level as you would get island-wide in sewage. It's in some spots are higher than others. And before I came to the town, I was a plumbing contractor, and I knew what time of year we shut the houses all down, and what time of year we should turn the houses all on. And I wanted to focus our testing on those specific months, so we can see if there was a difference in loading or a difference in the type of products. And we've been able to prove it's a lot of cleaning products, of course, coming in and those certain months, and then other months don't have that high peak loading. So it's given us a roadmap now of what's hitting the facility, and what can we do about it. Trying to capture all the PFAS and then figure out, okay, well, what are we gonna do with it? It's hard to get boat reservations, as we all know. It's even harder to get boat reservations for hazardous materials. So we're starting to look down the road now at destruction technologies. Collect it, gather it, condense it, and then try to destroy it so that we don't have to try to haul it off island. A lot of different technologies out there, from supercritical water oxidation to just electrolysis. Carbon filtration does a great job at capturing PFAS. The problem with that is after the carbon is exhausted and done its thing, what do you do with the carbon? You can regenerate at some point, it's to some certain extent, but that's high temperatures and everything else like that, and we can't do it here. So it would have to be hauled off. So there's a lot of things we're looking at to prevent having to haul everything off. So there's been a lot over the years, and I did hear some people talking about the sampling now that the Board of Health's doing for the opioids and everything like that. And all we do is take the same sample we test for PFAS is what goes down to the university, and they do their sampling for the narcotics and everything else like that. So a lot to what we do. It's, some people have the theory, oh, I flushed my toilet, problems are gone. Well, it's where does it go from there? I always extend the olive branch out everywhere I go for tours. We give tours all the time of the treatment facility so that people can see what hits the facility and then what we're ultimately discharging. It's quite an amazing process. It's a very, very delicate balancing act. It's even more delicate in Sconset where everyone is, because that facility is so seasonal. Summertime, we'll see flows out in Sconset of 350,000 to 500,000 gallons a day of flow. But in the wintertime, we see less than 15,000. So our biology, our bacteria, we have to feed it. We have to be able to maintain it, because come April and you have the Daffy, there's a big load going to hit the facility. Well, we have to try to build up our biology before that happens so that we can treat the waste coming in. Sconset's an extremely delicate balancing act. Surfside, not so much because it's steady. So there's a lot of science involved in it. Engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and it's just a lot of people when they come out and do a tour, when they leave, I had no idea what goes on. So everyone's welcome to come out anytime. I'll touch a little bit on the stormwater. We're doing the exact same thing now on stormwater as we did with all the sewers. We're going in and camera and everything, inspecting everything, cleaning everything to find out what's in the ground and where is it in the ground. A lot of the old stuff that's well before the 50s some of them are on hand-drawn charts or whatever like that, but nothing's been GPSed or anything like that. So some of our interns that we're doing this year is we're going to be having the young ladies out with our GPS equipment to try to start tracking this stuff, to try to get everything into GIS so that the data is accurate, and everything else. So we'll have a much better database in the coming years now on stormwater. We have it already for sewer, but now we want to take and improve our stormwater databases. We get a lot of questions. We've had a lot of issues with some flooding over the past few years. Pocomo's been a big hotspot for us. Lately, down all in Brant Point area and everything, we've done a lot of work down there. So we've done a lot. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I don't know if anyone has any specific questions that they'd like to ask.
Sure, sure. What we'll do is go around the table and I just have a sort of question and observation first, and just to show and tell. They're online, the sewer maps.
Yes.
And I guess they're more or less up to date. Yeah.
Not 100% yet, no. We have all the data now. We have a firm that's taken and transitioned everything into the right shape files so that we can get it within the next, I'm hoping year, 18 months, the town's GIS will be updated. We have all new shape files. We're working extremely closely with Nathan over at GIS and the IT department so that the data that's coming in that we have now will be current. So when you do log into the town's website and you, hey, do I have sewer in my road or whatever, you'll be able to look and it'll definitely be more up to date than what it is
Yeah.
today.
So my question is if, or an observation, sort of question observation is the following, has to do with the stormwater thing that you're now starting to go through. And the background is, live on a road where there are probably twice as many houses now as there were when I bought 15, 20 years ago. And I think and it's a private road, but with the great Massachusetts law, it's a public way.
Yes.
So we have responsibilities, we've got to maintain it and all the rest of it. And with the development, what happens to our road, and I'm guessing it happens to every road, is that the sort of thing that's left out really is stormwater, surface water generation, which is an issue for roads like mine, because invariably what's happened is that where the things used to drain over the road and onto an adjacent properties get built up each time a new house is built, and all of a sudden that road is there without any storm sewers and a lot of stormwater road, which the planning board's not taking account of, and whoever the building boards are. And it seems to me that that is a big gaping hole in sort of the quality of life circumstances here, because you're on a road that is just muddy, and now all of a sudden it's on a road where it has some death-defying ponds
Yes.
every time it rains. And there is a way, I think, to control or at least regulate increasing the altitude of lots. And right now, I think it's basically just being given lip service to and creating a problem that requires a solution. And so as a result of all this, also, your sewer opening, storm sewer opening at the corner of Pilgrim and Cliff Road gets overwhelmed. And everybody's looking at us as we're the problem. Well, it's overloaded for a variety of reasons, and that's one of them.
Well, that's a great topic. And what we're currently redoing our stormwater regulations. We're actually creating some stormwater regulations. And what we're doing is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we're looking at a lot of other communities in Massachusetts and a few other states, especially coastal areas, to find out what they've already learned, so we don't have to take and do it all over again. One of the things we're looking at very closely is stormwater management on construction sites, specifically. Cliff Road has been a big construction site for many years now, and you've seen it with all the washout on the roads down the center strip. You know, we did that fix that we did on Pilgrim Road to try to solve that big gaping hole that was there. It's definitely, it has improved it. It hasn't solved it, but it's improved it. Growing up on West Chester Street, that area was very familiar to me. There was no homes. I mean, there was a vernal pool right off of the right side of Pilgrim Road. All the stormwater could naturally go off the roads. We didn't have the flooding. And that's becoming a big issue, really big issue. Brant Point area, for one, is a big issue because they changed the flood maps. So now you have to have your first level elevation, basically at elevation 10, to be outside that FEMA A zone and everything like that. So now you do the landscaping, like you say, the natural waterways are gone. And that's a huge issue of what we're seeing. Pocomo's been a big one out there. When they extended the road, they dug it down a little bit, and now the sides of the roads are this high. Where's all the sand go? It goes directly into the catch basins that are there, plugs them up, and now we're out there all the time trying to clean them. The amount of non-impervious area that's developed over the last, 50 years. Has really increased our flooding issues. Downtown specifically alone, there's so much more now impervious land and roofs and parking lots and everything else like that. The water has nowhere to go, or it can't get out fast enough. We have 11 to 15 outfalls all around the island directly into the harbor. Not the ideal situation nowadays with everything that comes off the roadways and everything. So we're trying to work on that. What's the next step for stormwater? Do you mass fisheries, everyone wants it out of the harbor. They don't want the pollutants going in. Well, what are we gonna do with it? We're working very closely with the land bank now on like the Lily Pond area. That was my stomping grounds when I grew up. And there was a lot of ditches and trenches and everything back in the day that have over the years grown in, they haven't been maintained. And the land bank wants to redevelop that as natural bioswales. And that's gonna treat the stormwater before it hits the harbor. That's what we want. You've probably all seen that little garden now down at the corner of North Beach and East. It's a little rain garden and whatever, but it's actually treating the stormwater that's coming. It goes into there, then comes back out. The bioswales say a lot. However, as we all know, land is expensive, and a lot of times you don't have that land mass to be able to put in these giant bioswales. We're trying to incorporate that in a lot of projects, and that what they do, that's why you see so many projects come through, they have to have an X amount of green space, It's not just that it's a field, it's a treatment system to help with the stormwater, so. Times are changing, we have a lot of issues in the Brant Point area, I just spoke at the yacht club a couple weeks ago about that, and in Willard Street, and I mean, there's a lot of elevations now that are the same elevation as the wetlands. So it's becoming an issue, and it's a great point to bring up that, like Pilgrim Road, I mean, I talked to all the property owners up there multiple times, and the solution we came up with, which we knew it wasn't the total complete solution, but it was a stopgap to try to make it better, which it has.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of that water runs over across the street to Shady Lane, where there are now houses. And there's no place for the water to go.
Yeah.
That's what we're running into.
Yeah. So when we built our place, and we're between two wetlands. So in theory, it ought to all drain out there, but you have,
The elevations have changed, so there's no natural waterways
we
anymore.
put in, I think, 3 dry wells. And that seems to solve the problem for us. I don't know how, don't really even know what a dry well is, but they're expensive. And that seemed to keep water from our property from running very far, and whatever it does goes into the wetlands. But it just may be that, there are construction techniques as all this happens, so you can forestall the problem from developing and still do the construction.
We do see a lot on the plans, when they come in with a sewer permit plan, it has to be a complete picture of the whole property. And there are more and more wet wells going in just for this, because everyone wants their roof leaders into the wet wells. It's some of the thinking is changing, but it's not 100% there yet.
Yeah.
Sconset's got a classic issue where almost all the stormwater in Sconset discharges right at the public beach at Codfish Park. And depending on what color the clay tennis courts are, red or green, the beach turns that color. Not an ideal situation, it's just where can that much water go? And that's why we're really starting to look at bioswales and just vegetated wetlands to try to get rid of some of the water, and it's very hard, it's just so expensive. So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to monopolize
No,
this
that's-
by any means, and I appreciate the answers and appreciate what you've done at the end of Pilgrim Road. So we just go around.
Sure. First, thanks very much for taking the time to come
Thank you.
and speak. It's very interesting. You mentioned that you're scoring the pipes, and the 3, 4s, and 5s are the ones that you're obviously focusing your attention on. I'm just curious, how many of those do we have, and what is the capital? What are we looking at capital expenditure downstream to how many of the pipes, or percentage of the pipes really need to be replaced at this point?
Over the last 3 years, we've been replacing a lot, spot repairs. We've done a lot of pipelining, which a lot of people don't even get to ever see. Because they'll come in with a specialized equipment, which something Nantucket never did until 3 years ago now, 4 years ago. Where we'll put a liner in one manhole and they pull it all the way up to another one. Inflate it, and it's a 50-year structural liner. We did that specifically down on Eastern Street because we had so much infiltration coming through, because all the pipes down there were so old. And the hose pipe was big enough that we could line it. So we lined that main all the way from Cliff Road, all the way down through to North Beach Street. And we removed about 250,000 gallons of water a day that didn't need to be in the system getting treated. So lining has been a big part of it. The reason we chose the route from C Street out to South Shore, and it's weavy. People want to know, why did you do this? We went down every road that had number 5 issues with the sewers, number 4s or whatever, and it was all over 100 years old. So that's why we chose that route. Yeah, it's zigzags and everything else, but the water main was almost 100 years old. All the sewers, stormwater, so everything's brand new now. So that's why we looked at that route specifically. We have some more stuff coming up this winter. We've been doing quite a bit in Wisconsin lately. On smaller, we did King Street, Shell Street, and that whole area. We just did Pleasant Street last winter. That pipe was 6-inch that served all of Pleasant Street from about 5 corners down. And when it was built back in the day, okay, there wasn't that many houses, so we now have a 12-inch main in there and no more roots. Roots, believe it or not, can get into water mains. They're amazing what they can do. And all it takes is a little void and they're in, and we've pulled out roots this big inside some sewer mains that have gotten to be the sole size of the pipe. So you're gonna see us continuing on. That's an ongoing program. We're trying to request $2 million. We had been every year to get to a certain point. Now we're gonna move it out to every other year, and then every year try to do $2 million worth of work to keep everything up to date and moving along. So there's still a few. A lot of the town ones have been corrected, not all of them yet, but we're getting there. It takes time, and I have to say that every sewer project nowadays, a sewer and water project combined, it's basically a roadway project, because everything gets done, everything gets taken up, put back in, and it costs us about $1 million a mile to pave. So they're roadway projects, even though they're infrastructure projects.
You and I worked on something several years ago when the storm had come up so high on Sconset Beach. You had a post that if it gets too close, that means you're too close to the sewer beds. And we already have that problem on the South Shore from the erosion. So what is the long-term plan for protecting the sewer beds, both on the Surfside side and Wisconsin?
Sconset, those posts that you talk about are gone. They, for probably 14 of my 18-year career so far, we had the accretion out there. Everything was building up. There was well over 300 feet at one point to the beds in Sconset. Now there's less than 100 feet. Will that change again and go back to accrete? But we're looking at different locations of where we can relocate the beds. In Sconset, we could actually flip the beds because we own the land. We could actually bring them inland a little bit more and give us a buffer for a certain amount of time. When they did a CWMP in Sconset in 2004, the ultimate plan was to pump the effluent all the way to Tom Nevers and have discharge fields out there. Well, most of Tom Nevers now is gone. So now we have to look at some more creative ways and inland ways of, do we do injection wells instead of discharging into sand bed filters, which ultimately goes back down into the aquifer? Do we just do wells? So we're looking at all of that. This last storm, Aaron, I had a little bit of a sleepless night the other night because of what was going on, and it ended up not being as bad as we anticipated. We did have waves coming up to the perimeter fence again. But over the summer and last winter, we didn't have any storms. And I'm hoping that we get that again this year. So there was quite a big beach. It's the whole South Shore this year. Well, it's not there now. It's gone. Will it come back? Most likely. That's what I've been seeing my whole life here. So we're looking at ways to working with Vince Murphy and coastal resiliency and everything else like that is. What can we do? We know this, you know, some people don't like hard armoring on the beaches or quad bags or along like the Bluff and Baxter Road. What else is out there for technology? It's changed. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really changing. Is it something as simple as putting some large boulders staggered along the beach to break up the velocity zone? So you don't get that erosion. But we're looking at a whole bunch of different options. We have filled one of the beds in Surfside. We had to, because the waves were coming into that bed. And if it had gotten into the bed and really established a channel, the beds were the same elevation as the beach. So we have one bed that's filled. That's a buffer zone. It's not a solution by any means. What do we do? We have seen over the past in Mattakit and in Sconset, hard armoring has its pluses, but it also has its negatives on the ends. That's, you know, how do we protect one area without impacting both sides of us? So we're trying to come up with all different types of solutions. The three beds that are along the shoreline closest to the shore in Surfside are original. Those are back from the 70s. We don't use them anymore. They're pretty much offline. So ultimately, could we fill them with DEP permission? And that would give us another buffer of another 400 or 500 feet. That might be the ultimate goal. Right now, we're using them for all the construction projects that are going on. We're using them for staging. Instead of having to have all the pipe and manholes and everything along the roadways, we're storing a lot of that at the treatment plant, and then they have to haul it to the project. Like Lover's Lane's coming up. That's that whole big roadway project. All the material is going to be at the treatment plant. So it's not impacting everyone's property along the route. So sconces can be tricky. Luckily, we have the ability to flip that would give us another buffer zone, but the ultimate solution is what are we going to do inland discharge? They're like a regular well, but the effluent goes into the wells and goes back into the aquifer instead of getting discharged into the sand bed filters. So we're looking at a lot of different, we would love to be able to recycle the effluent. Massachusetts is kind of funny with that. They don't look at it as favorable as some other states. If you go out to Washington State, I toured Olympia when I was out there seeing my son when he was in the military. They have purple hydrants throughout the whole city. It's all waste, it's the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant so that they can use for fire protection and irrigation and everything like that. Massachusetts kind of doesn't look at it. They look at it a little differently, but I mean, I'd love to be able to, we put 2.5 million gallons of effluent in the ground every day. Why not? We try to use it. So that's a very complicated issue we're trying to solve, so. Okay.
Anyone else?
You fix things when they break. But, are there any cliff issues looming? Are there any real big ticket items that are going to come upon us that you can imagine over the next 10 years? The island's got tremendous infrastructure needs, which it needs to spend money on. Is there something lurking?
A couple of the big things that are lurking, and we know about, they're on our radar, and the force mains, we'll talk about the sewer force mains. We had that failure in 2018. That was a 1932 force main that was in the ground. It was lined in the 80s.
What's a force main?
What's the force?
It's from all the pump stations. There's no flow to any of the plant. Well, Sconset's all gravity, but Surfside is all pumped. We have 17 pump stations around the island that pump all the waste to the treatment plant for treatment. So when I talk about a municipal force main or a force main, 20-inch pipe, 24-inch pipe that conveys everything from C Street and the bigger stations all the way out to South Shore. So we have currently 2 active force mains. The one that failed, we repaired. And so that's a standby. That's our emergency line if we need it. And the other one that's online right now is a 1986 force main, ductile iron, that we were going to inspect after our big pump station upgrade in 2016, but the main failed. So we weren't able to take that other one offline to inspect it. Now that we have the new force main, it's 3/4 in service. The rest, we are going to be putting the rest of it online this summer. the next thing is to take the 1986 main off and do a complete inspection. End to end, camera it, see if there's any flaws, if there's flaws, if we can line it to protect it. Some of the other issues that you see every day when you drive down the road, it's becoming quite an issue for us is around every manhole now you're seeing potholes or holes and the infrastructure on Nantucket wasn't designed for as much traffic as we have, heavy trucks as we have. So every time there's a manhole, we go and do a repair, and you can tell we're using a different material, an HDPE material that gives us some flexibility. So if something heavy hits the manhole, it won't crack everything. It won't. Normally, I used to use red bricks under the frames, and the red bricks have been shattering. So we're going along doing that's a big issue for us because you constantly see us out at manholes trying to repair them, bring them to grade, and that we're using new technology. Erosion's a big ticket item that we see all the time. And the big thing I think that's really gonna lurk over Nantucket a lot, and it's gonna be expensive, is what do we do with PFAS? I mean, Mark already has seen it in his, one of his wells, and that just cost him about 6 million for one well to try to treat that. And we're talking tens of billions of dollars to try to, if we have to end up treating our effluent at some point. If the state standards, because right now there's no standards on wastewater as far as the discharging. We have the data now, so we know what's going on. But if the state or the federal government comes in and says, you have to have zero, no matter what it is, your discharge has to be zero. That's probably one of the biggest things that's really lurking over us, so. Lots and lots of little things, but that's probably one of the bigger things.
What do we do now with the treated waste?
It gets discharged into you've flown over the beds before, the big squares at the treatment, it gets discharged into there. It's actually another type of filter. Then it ultimately makes its way down towards the aquifer. However, the surfside flow is pretty much directly to the ocean. It goes down and works its way out. So that's what we do right now currently. In the future, will there be some new technologies? We assume so. With some treatment plants go into wells. Some treatment plants, like the Upper Blackstone River up in Worcester area, their treatment plant is the start of the river, the Blackstone River. So it's all treated. And sometimes people look at it like, oh God, that's disgusting. And I mean, if you come out to the plant for a tour, we can put a glass of water and a glass of the effluent next to each other. You can hardly tell. We're a 2-micron filter. We filter down to 2 microns. So it's the sand bed filters are the last piece of the treatment piece. So it's another treatment after the UV and everything else. So it works very well.
We don't have to put the stuff on barges and take it out.
No, I'm sure everyone here has probably been behind our sludge truck at least once in their lifetime. And you can always tell it's a sludge truck because there's no one behind it. And we have to take it to the landfill. Years ago, they used to use it in the digester. It helped break down the trash, and then they turned it all into a topsoil or whatever. But because PFAS now, it no longer gets put into the digester, it gets put into a different process that they're allowed to use by regulations. And then ultimately used for cover on the landfill or whatever. That's one of the technologies that we're looking to figure out what to do. Right now, we take about 13 to 15 tons of sludge to the landfill every day of the treated and dewatered sludge. We want to try to cut that at least in half because it'll save landfill space. That's the big issue. And if we look at the technologies that are out there, we can reduce and we can destroy PFAS. So that's what we're looking at. And it's expensive technology, but if we don't try to reduce some of the loading we're taking to the landfill, now we're impacting that operation. It's gonna then ultimately they'll have to take more and more trash off island or whatever. We all try to work together. I try to work together with everybody. But sludge is, it's an issue. It was beneficial to the process back then, but it's all the stuff that's not digestible and treatable from the treatment process, so.
Just one personal question. I live at the corner of Fair and Lion, and at least twice a season, maybe 3 times, your guys are there. I don't know if they're cleaning out the sewer line or the water line.
Lions Lane is one of our higher priority numbers. That's coming on, that's on the list coming up. The section between Fair and all the way over to Pleasant Street.
Yeah, that's where I am.
We just did, all of Pine Street was all replaced,
Yeah.
and we did the line going towards Pleasant Street. We have to do that one section in the middle. We have to still, that, we have to do Spring Street. We've already redone Farmer Street. And a lot of the connecting streets are what we're looking at next. And we try to do those on the off season when we know there's not many year-round residents. I mean, you just went,
Wait until at least October 15th.
I mean, you guys just went through, I mean, that was a long construction project,
And one on Pine Street.
and people are getting construction fatigue. I'm getting construction fatigue. But it's, these are necessities that have to be done. And Pine Street was 6-inch pipe that served that whole entire community. And we were there weekly, if not, or every other week, running the line because it was full of roots and it was undersized. So.
So we have a 12-inch now.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
So what percent of the island, we have about 12,000 homes on the island. What percent are covered by the sewers and what percent are covered by the septic systems?
It's about 45% are sewer. You know, we're getting closer to 50% because we have done some expansions. Anyone that might live out in the Shimo area or Monomoy area, you know, we're ready to, one of the next expansions going forward to protect our harbor, it will ultimately be the Shakamo area. We already have a force main in the ground, ready to go for expansion at a later date. We're getting ready to do Somerset Raceway all over Hummock Pond area that, so we're hitting the needs areas, the areas that were deemed nitrogen sensitive or critical for the ponds or any of the water wells or whatever. So that's where our focus lies now, on extending sewers into those sensitive areas. We're already about 60% designed for the Somerset area, Somerset Raceway and all the side streets out there. So that's our next area where we're gonna be going. At some point, we'll ultimately end up in Mattocket, I would assume. It's,
I've never seen any of the strategic plans that suggest that for the long term, they'd like to have almost all of the island covered by the sewer system versus septic. And I think the concern is that to do so would encourage many more housing units. And a lot of people say, don't do that, we don't want any more housing units. So
that's been critical, say Mattocket. Mattocket, probably 15 years ago, if not longer, thought ahead. Let's do something with our zoning, and they did. They did their zoning. Mattocket, even if Mattocket gets sewer, their zoning kind of limits it so that they can't have the large compounds. They might be able to go up a story. That might be about the max. So different areas of the island they're all looking at that. That's why at every town meeting, there's so many zoning articles. And that's got to do a lot of the pre-planning that you're talking about. The people are starting to look, okay, you know, they're gonna be running sewer to Hummock Pond here in the next 5 years. We need to look at our zoning or else we're gonna be overbuilt or, you know, to the capacity of each lot. A lot of the new technology, which has been really fascinating, is the IA systems. I don't know if anyone has an IA system at their house, a septic system, the innovative alternative. Those are actually miniature wastewater treatment plants, those advanced septic systems. The problem with those is, again, like what we do with the big plants, you have to maintain them, you have to test them, sample the effluent to see if it's got enough air, doesn't have enough air, or what's loading it. And there's a couple companies on the island that do that. Once the IA system goes in, you have to have a service program or whatever like that, which is very important to be able to maintain that system so that in the winter months, it's pretty much dead. But you have to be able to have some kind of a bacteria or biology working so that when people start to come back, there's enough bacteria to do the treatment. So maintenance on all those IA systems, or even septic systems in general, is extremely important. You know, one of the the biggest, things that can affect the septic system that really can damage a septic system is powdered soap, laundry soap. Because it actually creates a crust on top of the surface, so nothing can really breathe and do its thing. The one impact that we looked at, we had a conference in Chicago a few years back, and one of the speakers talked about antibacterial soap. That we had the pandemic and everything, and now everyone washes their hands a million times a day. Well, that's antibacterial soap. It's going into the system. It's designed to kill the bacteria. Well, it has impacts on treatment plants because we want the bacteria. We want that biology to grow so that it does the treatment. You have ones that get rid of nitrogen, some that get rid of the ammonia, but the antibacterial soaps is having an impact, especially on smaller communities where they have smaller. We're pretty resilient out there because we have such a high flow. We're doing about 2.5 million gallons a day right now. And that's a dry season. Normally we're up a little higher. But those are the things that you never think about that, even in septic systems alone, the antibacterial soap can have a huge impact on a septic system because of the bacteria. It's just.
Last question, about stormwater. I have a study that one of the engineering firms did about 5 years ago that said all that stormwater coming off Cliff Road going down to Brand Point, where I live on Willard Street, causes all that flooding. And they were trying to come up with a plan to change that, to divert it, send it over more towards Jetty Beach, stuff like that. And I went to a meeting with Charlie Johnson last year. We talked about it again, but so far nothing has happened. Is anything really happening on that?
It is all being, we have different engineering firms all working on it. And Willard Street is a classic. Everyone around you has either raised their house already
Yeah,
or,
we had,
and now where's all the water going? Into the street or into the lots that haven't been
and staying on the street.
staying on the street for a long time. And then, there was a woman at the yacht club a couple weeks ago that was there asking about Willard Street, and I knew who she was because I had met with her before. Willard Street's one of those, that Nantucket's trying to figure out, what are we gonna do with the whole shoreline around the town, the whole coastal area around the town? Do we put in bulkheads, a set elevation bulkhead the entire length of the harbor area? We can't have, well, this guy doesn't want to do it, and then you have a void, and guess where all the water's gonna come in from or whatever like that, so. Then they're thinking, well, if we do a seawall, do you have to raise the roads? Do you have to raise Washington Street? Do you have to raise Matticat Road with all the different elevations and title changes and stuff like that? So we now have a very cohesive group that's working together on all these problems, especially for the Brant Point area, Easy Street. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff still going on. It's just trying to get everything done is, where ultimately, where will the stormwater go? We're thinking pumping is gonna be the option. Are we gonna pump it to the treatment plant and use a couple beds as wetlands, or are we gonna try to divert it more towards jetties, so it gets the flushing, that where it discharges now, there is no flushing. It's just, stormwater is extremely complicated, and Charles is really working hard on that, and he's got these two interns now that they're really, so things are happening, just you haven't seen any construction pieces yet.
Thank you, thank you.
David, first of all, thank you so much. This is an enormous project that you're doing. I can't believe how intricate and how far-reaching your work is on the island. For individuals, are there like little things we can do as residents to kind of help things along?
There is, and we've been working a lot with trying to get to the groups, like this group here, this is fabulous for us to take and at least get the word out, because now there'll be some more questions generated, and there'll be different residents will want to offer, hey, what can I do to help? You go down through a lot of the streets in town, which was a practice that everyone would drill a hole through the curbing and then run their gutters and downspouts out into the street. Massachusetts says now it's regulated, that's not allowed anymore. Or everyone used to have, in certain areas, pumps in their basement, whatever, that would pump the groundwater into the sewer or into the stormwater. that overtaxed all the different infrastructure. Wet wells, like you were speaking about, is becoming a real thing where a lot of people are putting in these dry wells in their driveways. It's just basically a large pit with holes and it's surrounded with gravel and filter fabric, and it allows the water to take and to disperse underground instead of above it. Some people are trying to capture their gutters, and they're using it as like drip lines in the gardens and the flower beds and stuff like that. That stuff really helps because it takes that extra flow off the town's aging infrastructure. So anything like that is helpful.
Do you have like a public relations campaign about something like that?
My stormwater manager, they're working, trying to come up with something to take in. We did it with the sewers with grease, for example. Grease is our enemy in the sewer world. And we did some flyers, like no grease in the pipes, just wipe your plate, dish, pot, or pan before you rinse it out. That little bit helps. And we have seen it help. Wipes, oh yeah, every wipe is flushable. It'll certainly go down the toilet, but when it gets to the pump, it stops. And that's an issue. So we tried to do a flyer campaign with all the real estate brokers at one point, where we submitted these little flyers in the packets to try to get the word out. It helps somewhat. However, we can pretty much tell culturally where people live by different practices that they might have done back home or whatever like that. It's, in some European countries, they don't want vermin. They don't want the rats and the mice and stuff so they pretty much clean their plates off into either the toilet or the sink or something like that. Creates a big grease issue ultimately for us. But it's education, and that's where a lot of our tours come into play. We've had all the school groups. Mariah Mitchell comes out at least once a summer, and they actually get to see the amount of grease or the amount of wipes that we have. So, and they go home and they say, well, we did a presentation at a select board meeting, and they went home and one of the kids' fathers called me and said, I don't know what you said to my son, but he's making us wipe our pans now. It's like, but it's education, and that can sometimes be hard. It really can. But we're trying to come up with, we've got these new interns that are great with social media. Florence here at the town is great with social media. We're trying to get some more interest drawn into that. And a couple of years ago during that construction project, I was told by a business owner that only old people read the newspaper, so we would never see that. And that kind of said, well, I don't read the newspaper and I read everything that's done electronically. Let's get more of an electronic footprint out there to get this word out there, but every little bit helps, so.
Does the town limit asphalt? Do they have, keeping that out of the picture?
Well, a lot of that, the non-pervious stuff will fall in on either the plus department or natural resources if it's within a wetland area. They do have some, I bet you, I was on Conservation Commission with it, probably 18 years ago out in Matticat when they paved South Cambridge going over towards the bridge towards Sheep's Pond. A lot of that asphalt was pervious. It was designed specifically as a pervious asphalt so that the water would seep through it.
Right.
But pervious asphalt has to be treated and maintained a special way with vacuums and stuff like, you can't just sweep it or brush it off. The sand gets down into the thing, so it has to be vacuumed off. It's a maintenance thing, but it's also an education thing again, that, have a shell driveway instead of an asphalt or a
We
concrete
don't
driveway.
limit.
That's all falls under planning, unfortunately. It's, something that I think ultimately will have to be looked at.
And did they ever give consideration to some kind of surcharge to these huge trucks? Since they are ripping up our streets, I mean, is there any?
Years ago, we all remember there used to be a scale at the steamship on the mainland back in the day. And everyone was weighed, and if you had a certain weight, they wouldn't let you go on the boat. Well, there is no weight limit anymore. For better or for worse does it, more product can come over, yes, but that has its own you know, impacts on the roadways or whatever like that. So along the truck routes, we're going along and replacing all the red bricks that have been crushed with these new technology rings that give it some flex.
But we're paying for that.
But
I'm
it
just
is
saying,
in the-
the
yeah.
users, the people on island with these huge trucks. I mean, they're, you know, they're being hired to do that, so is there a surcharge that you can do on that to have them the payer of the replacement of the bricks?
It's a good thought. Many people know where I live, though. I'd probably have all the trucks parked in front of my house. But no, it's something that, and it's a good point to get out there that, you know, in our stormwater regulations, we're gonna try to get to the point where, and even in our sewer regs, the developers now have to contribute to the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's very.
And it's been a battle because they try to challenge it, so whatever we write regulations, we don't just start at scratch, we look everywhere else. And one of the ladies that are working on our regulations, she's with our consulting firm, she's a former EPA regulator. So she kind of has all the what ifs and outcomes, and so she's been really key in helping us create our regulations that now have some teeth. Nantucket has a lot of regulations, a lot of them don't have any teeth, which is unfortunate. You know, our regulations are enforced by the health department. We don't have the enforcement capability, they have the enforcement piece of it. So we work extremely closely with these other different town boards and committees and stuff like that, so it's changing. It changes slow. I mean, we just all had I'm sure you saw that, we just had to have a sewer rate increase. And that sewer fee, you know, doesn't only help just the treatment plant, but it's helping with everything in the ground too, which, you know, every road on Nantucket has pipes underneath it. Ultimately, everyone uses the sewer some way or another. So.
No, no question.
I just have a comment. I live on Lily Street on the C Street project, and when you started it, you guys were so good about keeping the neighbors informed, having public meetings, answering questions. So I just wanted to.
Well, that was
I thought
key
that was helpful.
for me, especially as a local. That was very key for me because those were all my old stomping grounds, and I knew a lot of the residents, and they were key in a lot of working with us in our meetings. And then the residents brought up some factors that we were thinking one way, but the residents brought up other things like, hey, you know, what about this or what about that? You know, on Village Street, for example, there's a couple areas that were grass strips that now are brick sidewalks. So there's a little more ease of access around. But your group that was down through there, we had a couple meetings up with the church and everything like that. That was extremely helpful. And then when I go down there still whenever I go down on Lily and I park my car or whatever, residents will come out. But hey, thank you very much. You know, we saw this and we saw that.
Yeah, I think my wife is one of them.
That helps. But that helps. See, that's, some people will take that as maybe being annoyed or I don't. I take everything, you know, someone tells me something or gives me an idea, it's like, okay, I'll make that my idea. So now I came up with that solution, but Lily Street was an extremely difficult challenge. It really was. But it's all back together now, and one of the residents stopped me the other day, and now she wants a third speed hump on Lily Street, so. You know, we have the two, we put the temporary ones down because when we did the temporary paving, the residents called. Hey, you took our speed humps away, we need something, so we purchased temporary ones that now have been beat up pretty bad. So when we come through this fall, the asphalt ones will be going back, and there may possibly be a third one because we're getting input that they want a third one closer to.
As long as there's humps and not bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones on Lily Street actually they were pretty impactful. If you hit it too hard, you knew it, but they kept the traffic slow. They really did. Those were well designed, whoever designed them and did. And that's what I think, you know, we've had people want speed humps on South Shore Road going down to our treatment plant. Because that's a mile long straightaway, but it would be impactful for all the heavy trucks, the tankers and everything else, so. But it's not, no, I thank you for the comments on Lily Street. That was really helpful, so.
Oh, good. So I think we've been around.
I don't know if anyone in the back.
Anybody online or?
Any public question?
Well, I apologize for being late. I thought it was at another location and there was so much traffic going to Washington Street and then only to realize it was here. I just was wondering, I'm sure,
Identify yourself.
oh, my name is Madeline Callahan. I live at 154 Surfside Road.
Okay.
And there's tremendous issues. We've been coming to the island for 44 years and we've only owned 9. But rather than go into all my wish list, I was wondering what your wish list was, similar to what she was asking, what we could do. I know sometimes when you work in the department, your hands are more tied and you're somewhat enabled if the residents or the taxpayers can offer assistance. So do you have a wish list?
Well, one of the big wish lists, and it seems to come more and more the further on we go, is that public-private partnership. I think it's so important. It can be very complicated to have that public-private thing work, but it's in order to solve a lot of the problems, especially on the waterfront downtown, that has to be public-private, no matter how you look at it, because all the private homeowners aren't gonna want the town to come in and build a wall that's X or whatever like that. So, out towards you out there, and I mean, you guys had a lot of flooding issues right in that general area, and we spent a lot of time out there trying to clean those units that weren't maintained properly over the years or whatever like that. So, sometimes the town, at some point, the town's gonna have to look to the residents and say, hey, we're trying to solve this major flooding area. Can we get an easement or a small piece of area so we can put an underground drainage issue, say, in someone's yard? You'd never know it was there. But I think at some point, because of the amount of construction and everything else going on, we're gonna have to start to look outside that little box and say, hey, you know, can you provide the town with an easement just to put an underground drainage system in, and then it would be landscaped and everything else, but that's a key thing, as we said, what can the residents do to help? At some point, I think those asks are gonna come. I think it's complicated, but I think those asks are gonna come, that, you know, can we utilize, you know, we luckily, when we did Pilgrim Road up on the cliff, we met with all the residents and we kind of gave them that this is what we're gonna do as a stopgap solution to try to solve that. Cause you could lose a Jeep in the hole that was there for years. Willard Street's another one that we've had problems with over the water just can't leave the roadway. How do we take and approach the residents and say, can we do something on your property as part of this, but through an easement or whatever, but there's gonna have to be that partnership. It sooner or later it has to happen. It's just no doubt about it.
David, you know, whenever someone purchases a property on Nantucket, there's the land bank fee. Do you envision something like that, like a sewer fee in addition? Because it simplifies it,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but
Yeah.
We have a sewer capacity fee now that we charge on permitting and stuff like that. What we're looking to do in the stormwater world, and a lot of other communities do it, is they put it, there's a small fee. Some towns, like $127 a year or $200 a year. That's something that we're looking at to try to take and say, okay, you know, island-wide, everyone will contribute X dollars a year on a separate fee or whatever, that will go into a pot so that we can fix stuff. People don't like changes, they don't like fees, and I get it, we all get it, but I honestly think that, especially in Nantucket, I think if the percentage of taxes went up an ever so little bit of amount that would help offset costs and other stuff, I think people would be willing, as long as they get the services that they're looking for. I don't want to say it's inevitable that there's gonna be some type of a stormwater fee coming, but that's where we're kind of looking at. Because we need that, the sewer enterprise, our fees are all done by users. We're 100% relying on user fees for the sewer enterprise fund. Stormwater enterprise fund, we ultimately want to get to that same point, but right now there is no funding mechanism in place our regulations will start to make some funding come in. Right now, all stormwater operations still come out of the general fund, which is limited, extremely limited. So we're trying to be creative and come up with somehow, how do we fund that?
The increase in our sewer tax recently, what does that go towards?
That goes towards all the repairs on the roads, all the treatment plant maintenance. Surfside Treatment Facility is the largest consumer of electricity on the island. We are the highest user across the island. The schools and the digester and stuff come in after that. How do we reduce our electric fee? That's when we have solar now. We're the largest municipal solar system on the island right now that we have. It's offsetting us by 32,000 kilowatt hours a month, which is a drop in the bucket for us. That's enough to run a couple of houses. I want more solar, or, God forbid I use the term windmill, but, it's,
Maybe
There's-
when they put the blades back on the old
there's
mill.
gotta be a way to take in, electricity is so expensive here, and everything we do at our treatment everything has to get pumped to the treatment plant. Everything has to get pumped around the treatment plant, so we have to handle stuff. Everything's done by electric motors. It's just,
That begs the question, is there anything we can do about National Grid? Is there some way we can do something?
well, when you figure
Other
that
than
out,
self-
you probably will become one of the wealthiest people, but they are hard to. I mean, they're such a large corporation that they have that controlling aspect over everything. I think we all realize that, will there be a third cable someday? Probably. Where's it gonna go? There's no more room in the roads. That's
Yeah.
becoming a big issue. We're working right now with National Grid and some other companies to do a demand response. They want us to run a generator a couple days a week to get off the grid. It makes sense, being as high an energy user as we are. They're willing to take and offset our bills for that, so that's what we're looking at. We've done it in Wisconsin over years. But any little thing like that helps. National Grid, every couple of years, has a huge incentive that they'll pay for upgrades for your facilities. They'll replace all your drives for your pumps, or put in VFDs, which are very speed. And we've taken advantage of that how many times over the years, and it's really offset our costs. So we look at anything like that to try to,
Question maybe for the group.
We'll make this the last.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
A couple of years ago, there was a question that came up of, I believe it was a sewer connection fee that was going to be charged in.
Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, we had it was going to be two-tiered. Did that ever go into place? It was substantial, as I recall.
So there's the resident who can get a loan to pay for it. And then there's me who paid $18,000 to connect, based on how many bedrooms you have.
that's still and they tried, was that last town meeting? They've been trying to do some kind of a resident offset for that. For years and years, the sewer fees, the permit fee used to be $500. And it never got changed for like 30 something years, and then it ended up going up to $2,000. And there was still a two-tier piece of it there, but when we did the sewer regulations over and the cost of everything that was. In the old days, someone would call up, say, hey, this is Joe, we just did the sewer connection, can you come out and do an inspection? It used to be simple, it used to be one visit, one inspection. Now there's multiple inspections, so we had to try to figure out how to pay for that. So that's where a lot of these fees come in. The sewer permit fee right now is $4,000. And then there is a capacity fee, and that's based off of bedrooms. And all those fees go directly towards the operation and maintenance of everything. It is expensive, but if you look at some other towns, we're quite a ways down on the list. I like to stay that way. I just, so.
yeah, one of the issues is sewer fee, and I think I wrote a letter to probably Matt and Fee. And he responded, and suggesting that the break, and I think this is for people who probably had real difficulty paying the sewer
Yeah,
fee,
yeah.
but they were
Would be
being
recovered.
forced to upgrade to the sewer. And I think our our suggestion was, if you're gonna do this, at least do it and place a lien on the property that you've basically given the free sewer hookup to, so that when it's sold, it can be recaptured from the sale price. And he said, that's a good idea. See if you can get somebody to sponsor it. And,
Yeah, and the selectmen in the strategic plan, they're trying to look at all those pieces. Matt, as we all know, he's that fiscal guy.
Yeah.
And he's, he has to be a fiscal guy because he's in a private business and stuff like that, so. Matt usually has his visions or his thoughts, and people look like him, you're crazy, you can't do that. Well, no, Matt is, I mean, I grew up with Matt basically here, and it's just, everyone has a different way of this, there's more than one option to solve a problem,
Yeah.
so. But it's groups like this that I think would help that. It's like, what can the residents do to help with stormwater or whatever like that, and that's something that we're trying to develop.
well, I've got some ideas I'll send to you in writing, and
You can spread my email around to everyone, and like I said, if anyone wants a tour, let me know.
That's the other thing. One of my takeaways is when I have guests and they say, what should we do? Instead of sending them to NHA, I'm gonna send them to your tour department to take a tour. Because
Rather
I-
than walking the Sconset Bluff.
yeah, I find this, I'm so glad you came, because it's been really, we all know that things don't just end by flushing the toilet, and it's a lot more obviously goes into it than I really thought about, and that's like a lot of things, that sort of the silent things that we all take it for granted, and that we probably, it's a good thing that we can take it for granted, but we probably shouldn't.
But the kids they're their future, or no doubt about it. And there was a couple of years ago that the Boys Club came out with a group, and they were in some kind of a national Lego competition. They were nationwide, and they were designing how with the toilets that would like flush and stuff like that. And they came out with a lot of specific questions because of what they were trying to do. And some of the kids, I tell you, they have questions, and afterwards, they usually all provide us with a letter afterwards with pictures of drawing what they took out of it. And it's like they always pick one certain piece of the process and they'll draw it out. And we keep all those cards. And it's, again, the young people see different things than what we do. There's no doubt about it. My granddaughter loves to come out there. She's always, and when she comes out with the groups, she's always right there and leaning into the tank, looking and stuff like that. It's like, we need to rely on our younger people coming up and technology. I mean, our two interns, for example, they can do stuff with a computer and an Excel sheet that I can only dream of. But we definitely need to start leaning on our younger people for sure.
Michael.
But the breadth of your job is just amazing, that you have a handle on all of the elements so well.
I'm only 29, you know.
So we do have one more from a member, Michael Cody, if you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I enjoyed it. This is a more general question. There's no doubt that we're going to have fees for the infrastructure, including the sewer. Has there ever been any discussion of reducing the 2% land bank fee and taking some portion of that for infrastructure? I mean, roughly 60% of Nantucket is now in conservation lands. And I think if we start adding 2% and 3% and 4%, it's going to affect everybody. But maybe redeploying some of that money that's already taken would be a solution.
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point, and I think that they've tried it at town meetings in different ways to take and look at all these different fees, and I certainly am not gonna sponsor something like that, so.
That's like, Michael, thanks for bringing the third rail into the discussion today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to come up because you look
Yeah.
at the capital costs and, you could easily see 5, 6, 7% fees added on to real estate transactions. And at some point, the land bank is just keeping to buy up Nantucket. There'll be nothing left for non-land bank owners.
Well,
It's obviously,
That's what the non-starter.
but it's,
Run out of land.
at least that concept is being discussed more and more nowadays. And that's, more than certainly when I arrived. That means there's.
It's being
some
discussed a
thought
lot
going
more on the
into it.
mainland. You're starting to hear a lot of different communities talking
Yeah.
about it too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay and be bored with our squabbles about other things and
It's a nice day. I'm gonna go home and change and go for motorcycle rides. But thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Randy, nice to see you. I thought for sure you were gonna have questions for me.
No, I'm good.
I've known Randy, I was Randy's plumber for years. All righty, folks, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody online.
Yep.
Nobody said
Bye-bye.
that. No round of applause.
Oh, wow. It's a long way since I've tiny.
Yeah.
So next is,
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Okay, so let's see. So we will sort of try to go through the rest of the agenda for today. And the next item up is an update from Donna on the town council study committee.
I'll be brief. We have not met in quite a while, since the annual town meeting. And, Joe Grouse, our chairperson, will have a report to Libby and to the select board. Now it's going to be in September because there is not going to be a special town meeting that was proposed, for November, I think. So we have time to decide what we're going to do. Personally, I do think just having the town council study committee has raised awareness of the pros and cons of the ATM. And I think that personally, that has been our value. Obviously, the voters chose not to pursue it. But they're also looking at some disadvantages and perhaps some improvements for the annual town meeting. And I think that has been our value to the community. So we have to decide if we're going to move forward in some form or not. That's where we stand. So in September, when we do meet, I'll have maybe more of an update, but that's it for now. Thank you.
Can I just, was there any advocacy, either or formal advocacy effort either for or against the town council idea? Or was it just, when we went to the annual meeting, was it just sort of put up naked? Or has there been any real advocacy either side, and for or against?
The voters voted against it.
I understand, but is anybody, was there anybody?
We
advocating?
limited advocacy at the town.
Absolutely. Joe made all his speeches,
Yeah,
public speeches. He promoted it and beautifully,
yes, he
but
did.
the people weren't interested.
No, but there was no as I recall, there was no, it was not allowed. There was no advocacy on the floor. It was a very
Not for the
limited.
meeting,
No, no.
but prior to the meeting, there were several public sessions
Mhm.
that public was
And,
asked to participate in to
yes,
see whether they think it's a good idea or not. So-
yeah.
And they were advocating it.
Were
This
those-
was from the committee advocating.
Were those substantially attended?
No,
No,
no, we had maybe 6, 8 meetings, and we also went around to different civic groups. In addition to having meetings in, where was it, Fairgrounds? There was,
there was plenty of, yeah.
yeah, and the Athenaeum also. Attendance was, minimal, very few people attended. And the people who attended, interesting, they kept saying the same thing. They were not listening.
Mhm.
So that's why I think the value is, let's review what we have on our little island.
Why didn't they
See if we
allow
can
on the
improve that.
floor?
it's a very emotional issue, I think. At town meeting, I think it was 5 minutes for Joe to
Joe
give his
could only
talk, and then I
speak for
think
5 minutes.
they had like maybe 5 questions of 2 minutes each were permitted, and then
That was it.
that was it. That was
Yeah.
because they didn't want it to go on forever, and that was what the moderator chose to do.
Yeah,
This was just gonna be a vote on the sense, which of
Right.
course has turned out just to be a killer vote.
yeah,
It was brilliant by, I guess, the people who were against the town council study commission to get this, you know, sort of
Off track.
unfull type of thing to get the whole thing off of track, which is what it wound up doing. I'm not sure that, what none of us can say is whether there'd be any different result with a fulsome debate. Because I think Kathy is right that this is, you know, people know what they have and they don't want to lose some aspect of that.
Well, what I couldn't wrap my head around was that people at the meeting who attended the meeting said the same thing. We like getting together. Well, my thing is, well, yeah, you can get together twice a month for 12 months, you know, but it was this once a year kind of fete that they had. I don't know.
Plus, you can get together weekly by going to the town, you know, select board meeting or whatever the town council
That's true.
that would be supported. And, you know, quite frankly, I've been to, I think, 3 of those this summer, and they're not well attended at all. They're just, their issue, you know, if your issue is up, you'll be there with your support group, making your points. Just like the group that was here the last time, when we had Matt was here and an issue was gonna be STR, the STR thing with a person who actually has, you know, some leadership in the area to speak to and impress.
This may be a very naive question or comment, but how much, when you think of the STRs or the new form of government, how much do the realtors control town meeting?
I think a lot, but that's personal.
Construction
I
industry.
don't know that control is the right word. I think they're,
Support.
especially when it comes to STR.
If they support something, it might get passed. If they don't support something, it might not, but.
Well, it's, you need to have the votes, you know, you're really asking, I think, how many voters can you get to the meeting to support your point of view? And and I guess the better organized you are, the more voters you're likely to get. But I don't, I think the real estate agencies probably have more control, if there is such a thing, in the state legislature than they do in the open town meeting.
But I guess even here, it's probably 100 realtors or salespeople. And assuming each of them can bring another vote in, their partner or spouse or whatever it might be, you have 200 votes potentially at the town meeting. So they do represent,
A block.
not on the first day, but certainly on the second or third day, they could represent 35 to 50% of the votes.
I assume this was a second day issue.
No, the first.
No,
It was the first day.
It was the
Yeah.
first day.
That's the first day.
Yeah,
Right up front, I think. they did
yes, it was.
Yeah,
Sarah Alger allowed Joe to have 5 minutes in the very beginning.
But it also failed at the ballot.
Yeah, it did. It also
yeah,
failed
I
the
just-
That's
ballot.
not an issue, really.
So it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
okay, so thank you. And you know, my view is it would be good if the group can come up with some suggestions, actionable suggestions for improvements. But that probably it's beyond that, this is an issue that should be revisited in
In a few
5 or
years,
10
maybe.
years, yeah.
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 Agreed.
Okay, so proposed noise bylaw amendments. Maybe you would like to talk
Next one
about.
is Gary.
Okay.
You wanna go to Gary? Gary's next. Gary's next.
That's my dog home.
Yeah.
Dog.
Coastal resilience is next. Coastal resilience is next.
I'm sorry,
So I created a minor miracle. I got Gary's talking.
I
for himself.
skipped over that, so coastal resiliency, Gary.
Okay, I'll make this very quick. First you have to renominate me or reelect me, reappoint me to the commission because I've been the town has reappointed me to this committee. And so I need to be reappointed to the coastal resilience,
So
advisory
moved.
commission.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, I think it ought to be based on your report today. Yeah.
But I can't report until I know I'm still on the commission, so I'll wait till you appoint me.
Are there any other nominations?
Okay.
Okay, then somebody call the question. Which is
So
whether or
moved.
not to report, to reappoint Gary to the Coastal Resiliency Committee as a representative of the ACNBT.
All in favor?
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Gary, it's unanimous.
Thank you all for that, both comments. Because we have a tight schedule, I just thought I'd show you a portion of, we had at one of our meetings a couple of months ago. The issue that we really have on coastal resilience is, how do we get the public's attention? More important, how do we pay for the things we're going to need to do? And the answer to the second question is very difficult. And so what we did one day is we put down a whole bunch of different possible streams of income, revenue that we might be able to use somehow to start funding coastal resiliency. All we're getting from the town these days is about $1 million a year. And that's be used for some coastal resilience, some of those natural resources stuff. The problem that we have is that almost all of the suggestions that you see, but we haven't come up with anyone, and we actually had someone from the town's law firm join our meeting to say, if we put some of these fees in, you know, whether we increase the beach sticker fee, we have these pots, question is, can we then use it? The problem seems to be that, according to town council, in most of the collections of fees that we might be able to collect from these things, we can't allocate them without going to the voters. And as you know, going to the town meeting is a struggle to get anything done. Part of what we learned at the last meeting is that all of the big projects, big capital improvements were voted down, Old Island Home and the DPW is going to need a new facility, not for the waste deposits, but for itself, for the trucks, the administration, stuff like that. It's gonna be underwater in 10 years, right? Washington Street is going to close 100 days a year in 9 years. 100 days a year, trucks won't be able to go on it unless we raise it. And we need all of it. So we need the funding to, and we've been doing the studies. We got a few dollars from some of the, we applied for some grants from the state. We got a few dollars for the planning, but not for the doing. And what I've concluded, at least my view is what happens is, unless the water is at our citizens' ankles, they're not gonna do anything. They're not gonna start voting to put an extra dollar, tens, or we're gonna need millions, a few millions of dollars to take care of some of these problems. And it isn't relevant enough to anyone right now. No one is screaming about all of the closures. No one is screaming about all of the flooding. And so unfortunately, you won't get that support at the ballot box or at the town meeting. It would be great if we could, you know, I mentioned at the time that Libby Gibson was our guest a couple of meetings ago. I mentioned the fact that New Jersey put in a mansion tax that said if you sell something for over $3.5 million, there's a 3.5% tax. And that tax revenue for the state of New Jersey is being used for affordable housing and coastal resiliency among the main uses, right? I said, wouldn't that be great for Nantucket? Well, no one's interested in it. What they say and what Libby said to us then, they said, Gary, we can't even get 1/2 of 1% for affordable housing from the Massachusetts state legislature. So why do you think someone's gonna bite for something a lot more than that. And that's our struggle until the flooding situation or the erosion situation starts to impact much more of our population. I think we will not have success at the ballot box or at the annual town meeting. And so all of these different ideas, I mean, betterments, Matt Fee keeps talking about betterments. If we ever do build some additional protection in Sconset Bluff, half of that's gonna be paid by the residents and the other by the town. And betterments will probably be used throughout the island. But before people are willing to step up to pay their fair share, splitting with the town, they're gonna have to feel personally impacted by it.
I think you're right.
And the weather isn't, and the erosion is happening, as I say, once again, if we don't raise the ferry terminal, in 9 years, those trucks won't be coming off anymore. And they know it. I think we get some funding from the Steamship Authority, so we don't have to raise it all ourselves. But we'll have to raise the roads connecting to the steamship terminal with all those trucks coming off. So we have a lot to do in 9 years, but I don't see any movement to it right now. So we have all of these ideas, how to do it, and as soon as we get told by our the council that you're gonna have to get cleared to use those funds, you can collect them, but ATM, the annual town meeting's got to approve, and I said, okay, that's the end of that. Until people start feeling personally affected.
You have to work through the Massachusetts legislature to have that a statewide issue for erosion. And that's part of the problem, because they would have to approve anything that we vote on.
Yeah, so it's very difficult.
It's an uphill climb with that legislature that does very little.
I mean, we do have really risks coming in 9 years, 9 to 10 years. If, by the way, there's one other thing. A lot of people that don't buy the projections. You know, it's like saying everybody takes the boat out of we're getting the hurricane. And Brant Point was ridiculous for the last week. Everyone pulling their boats out, and it wasn't nearly as bad as it was intended. When we talk about the problems that we see projected, the rise of the water levels around the harbors and stuff, a lot of people say maybe that'll happen and maybe not. And we'll wait and see whether it happens or not before we start writing checks for it, right?
I'm sorry, Gary, you know, Massachusetts has got a lot of coastline to it, obviously. Is there any attempt to sort of coordinate with with the rest of the coastal community to lobby the legislature, to work with the legislature? And
I don't know whether or not, I keep thinking that mansion tax where they talk about affordable housing and coastal resilience, that's a great idea. But I haven't heard that anywhere in the state of Massachusetts.
no, but I'm talking more generally as an advocacy group to bring all the coastal regions together. I mean, it's a big part of the state.
There is not. The state of Massachusetts talks about it a little bit in their new legislation. But that's all they talk about, yeah.
So I'm having a little bit of hard time getting my arms around what the real issue is here. And it starts with the council's view of, seems to me, expenditures.
Right.
And it seems to me this sort of breaks down into two areas. One, you have to collect the money. And is there any problem with collecting the money? And then two, you have to have authorization, even if you have the money, before you can write the check. And that's where the town meeting comes in either a second time or a first time. I'm not
Right.
sure which. But is there a possibility of something where somebody identifies, okay, we have all these things. And let's say the probability of them happening is 85 or 95%. You can believe you shouldn't pull your boat out of the harbor, and you may be right this year or the next year. But at least in small increments, the money is coming in. Some of it's being spent maybe for planning. But there's some money being built up so that when everybody feels the water lapping at their feet, the expenditure at that time is offset by a substantial sort of sinking fund, no pun intended, buffer what the final number will be.
I think the problem is that, one of the most important initiatives in the coastal resilience plan, which was written couple of years ago and published, it's available to everybody, is a communication. And we're spending a lot of time, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Commission, developing programs to try to get the word out about the issues coming up. We need to convince the public this is a real issue here, and they really should be starting to think about the fact that we're going to have to deal with it. I don't think the public on the island, the voting public, the voting residents on this island are very concerned today about all of these issues. And so unless we get, and we have, no one's reading newspapers, so we're doing some of these special programs on social media where we're gonna have a little clip. We have we're working on getting some group to put little clips about the kind of things that need to be done or are being done, planning to be done to save the bridge in Mattakit, to save some of the bridges in Palpas, all the stuff that needs to be done. And that's just to get the public to start understanding this is a real issue. And therefore, when it comes before you at town meeting, you're gonna say, okay, we'll put the money up.
Do you have
Is it
anybody
so-
that would, do you? Go ahead.
Is it such an overwhelming number that, hundreds of millions or billions that it's sort of, you can't deal with it? And if it was prioritized, we need 10 million to raise the steamship dock and the road around it, there would be, I don't remember what the number was when I first saw the report. It was just so huge. It's like, we can't deal with this. We're never going to raise that much money.
The numbers are very big. The numbers are very big. We assume at some point down the road, the state of Massachusetts, and maybe if we get a different administration, the federal government will also start taking care. But they are. If you take a look at Miami, you take a look at Boston, you take a look at New York, there are billions of dollars of federal funding going in to protect against rising sea levels. We are not a favored recipient of that because we only have 17,000, according to the census, residents. And people look upon us as, a rich vacation spot. And so we're not a favored recipient. And we apply for other things. I don't think we've done enough. We're trying to convince the town of Nantucket to have a full-time grant writer to go for everything we can. And they say,
You know how long that issue's been around?
I know,
I 20 years ago, I talked about.
I know, we're struggling to do that. And of course, when they say, okay, well, if we get the grant writer, it's not just gonna be for you guys, it's gonna be for a bunch of the other stuff where we need the available funding that might be from the government.
Do you have anybody that could do a video for the movie theater? Cause the locals all winter long.
We're talking about a clip for the Dreamland, we were talking about that at the last meeting. Couple
Here's
of
what it
clips
looks
here and
like.
there, showing what's being done, some planting that's being done in some areas, just try to, preserve the beaches. So we're trying to do that, and it's really to get the public understanding it.
Gary, what is the number one issue you would face with that committee? Is it Easy Street? Is it Washington Street? What would be the number one issue that they would want to address?
Steamboat.
The ferry,
Very.
Steamboat.
very by far.
Well, to me, it's the infrastructure you have to worry about. We've talked to the ferry people. We are now on the list. They said they finished Woods Hole. They finished the last thing they were working on. So they have told us they're gonna take care of that. And, we meet with them from time to time. And they say it'll be done in 5 years,
Raising this.
raising it so that the trucks will be able to come off the ferry and come onto the island. But we have to raise Washington Street to do that. There are 2 projects now on Washington Street that we've had 10 public hearings about them, because some of the local residents say, what happens if you build a wall over here? You know, you build a little road and what happens all the. And there's gonna be more hearings on that. And I think when Leah appeared before us, she showed, right? When Leah
Yeah,
appeared before
that's
us,
terrific.
she showed some
yeah.
of these public sessions that were happening, the Francis Street project, right? And the Easy Street project, both are very important, and we got some funding from Massachusetts, we got over $250,000 for the plans, you know, for the planning, not for the building. And we're still trying to make sure the residents are happy.
Well, in a way, that's good, because the ferry, everybody can identify with that. That has to be there. It has to.
Yeah.
So people might get used to it.
That's the most important.
That's the most
Why don't we
important
get Rob
one.
Rainey in here, one meetings?
He was here.
He was there.
Okay, so, one person at a time.
Yeah.
One person at a time. It strikes me that this is also an opportunity with coastal resiliency, and I think this is already being done, to incorporate the land bank. Because the land bank has been buying up property on the waterfront, at least at the end of, you know, the east end of Washington Street. And I guess right there at the terminus of Washington Street and the ferry dock.
Francis.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
bought that piece there.
And I don't know whether they also maintain their property, whether they can pay for part of the. raising.
Land Bank is actually doing very nice
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
In terms
Yeah.
of that part of the waterfront, they're using their money.
Yeah.
It's one of those projects, Francis Street is land bank money and town money, so they're splitting it with us. So the land bank does a pretty good job.
They
Of
do.
course, it owns all those properties on the harbor. And they're they did the Easy Street, the North Beach Street little thing. Not that such a big deal, but.
Yeah.
We should have Rob Rainey here. Rainey's our representative to the
Yeah,
steamship.
he was
Authority.
here 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
No,
No, he was here
He was
this year.
here this year.
This year.
Rob Rainey was here.
Rob Rainey.
Yeah, yes.
Got this year. Got this year last.
Last year.
Last year, okay.
Well, he's ahead of,
Absent.
he's ahead of taxation
I'm
anyway.
a year older.
I was thinking, you know what, one of my thoughts is maybe we ought to have the land bank, maybe Rachel Freeman, Rachel was a member of our coastal resilience committee. She's now just become the new executive director.
Mhm.
And
That's a good idea.
and I watched the last meeting, where they went over all the projects, and she has a pretty good, and she worked for them before anyway, she isn't just new. So she has a pretty
Should we
good,
get them here together, or if we can do that?
I
Or,
mean,
the land bank will be
I
fine.
think the land bank, there are a lot of issues to deal with the land
Yes,
bank, not just. coastal
absolutely.
resiliency. I think that, you know, we've talked about having.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Randy this year.
No, but we're talking about the land bank, yeah.
Right.
yeah, and that she was kind of
I
brand
mean, the
new.
land bank is also very interested in affordable housing.
Right.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to,
They're trying to
I mean, they just
Okay.
bought that
One,
lot.
one thing you all know, I'm sorry, I wanted to make this shorter, but it's stuff is important, is that, you know, of all the issues on the island, affordable housing is much more important to the residents than coastal resilience.
It's immediate.
Believe me, it's immediate. They don't really, coastal resilience, when I say in 9 years, you won't be able to go. 9 years, they're looking at 9 weeks, then they have to move, if the season's over, they can move back to the house. I mean, there's so many people that are struggling for living. And that whole affordable housing thing. So our needs, coastal resilience has to play and does play second fiddle to that, unfortunately.
Although when you talk about Washington Street, everybody needs Washington Street. It's not just a
But
pretty
not this
place.
year, they don't need it this
Yeah.
year. This year, they're gonna be fine, and they're gonna be fine next year too. That's the problem.
Could we ever, have we ever had a legislative, you know, somebody from the legislation come?
We've had the legislative assistant, a number of years ago to one of our, one of the island's representatives.
He's now the representative, actually.
Yeah,
No, we don't vote, so they,
yeah. And she's now,
Visit and talk.
okay, well, let's bring this to a close. Thank you very much. Continue on.
9 years, you got 9 years, Gary.
and solve these problems before the next meeting.
I'm not gonna have 9 years, but.
So I think we can quickly do this noise, not nose, but noise bylaw amendment. Then do you want to just?
Sure, and the Civic Association did all the research, talking to builders, real estate people, homeowners, all about landscapers, how noise affects everyone. And if you go back to the quality of life premise that the town is one of its 4 mission statements, this would make a big difference. So the idea is that all the rules would be the same 12 months of the year. And the proposed hours would be 8 to 6 and Sunday 12 to 6. So the select board had quite a lot of comments and they had a lot of positive statements with other civic associations standing up in support, and the Nantucket Civic League. But it just took the owner of Tuscana to comment that this would ruin her entire business. And so then it was shifted to 7:30 to 6, but she would like a different timeline for the winter, because the only hours that you're open are critical. So it ended up that the good news is the select board will take this on as a warrant article. It will be their responsibility, which is huge because it will have much more impact than a citizen's warrant article. They're going to hedge their bets on what time in the winter versus the summer, because Brooke Moore wants to identify when sunset and sunrise are. So it is now going to a study group of the select board to finalize the times. So there's still time to comment. Carol Greenberg, the president of the Civic Association, thanked in a letter back to the select board and Libby and the police chief, who is a huge proponent of having the same hours all year round to make it enforceable. That it's so tricky. You'll tell a landscaper, I'm sorry, it's now July, you can't come at 7 a.m. And they have no idea what you're talking about. So this will be continued, but at least 6 p.m. seems to be pretty definitely good for everyone, which is huge, because currently for some of the construction and work, you could work till 10. So this, yes. So you are no longer, what we're doing is mirroring what the SOH and the TOH have, so that it's island-wide, no specific zone has an exemption. So
Isn't that what we were pushing for?
you did before, but at FinCom, Denise said, let's have a test case. Let's see how it goes in the historic districts before we open it wide. So the Civic Association feels that you've had your test case. It's been 3 years. No one complained. So let's make it island-wide. So when you have the support of the police chief, and Libby's been very supportive, it goes on now as a new warrant article that we will probably end up putting our weight behind when it comes to town meeting. But if I
It's
learn
like
more,
a-
I'll tell you more.
It's like a very, very, very small step forward, but it's a
I know.
step forward.
This is
Yeah.
government
Yeah,
increment.
I know, I was trying to do July and August when I was here, July and August. No heavy demolition during those 2 months,
Demolition's a whole different issue.
I know, anyway,
So,
but just
that went down in flames.
there's a copy of the draft that the select board is gonna model the final off of in the materials you might look at.
Right up here.
Yeah, oh, it's right there.
and then we changed so much in that discussion.
So we need a new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll come up with a new one, but it's something, at least you can see how it started.
But it's applicable basically to permitted construction, right?
It's those 2 sections of the bylaws that deal with any mechanical outside work.
It's not permitted, it's any operation,
Yeah,
operation of any mechanical equipment.
yeah,
Outside.
outside.
Landscape.
So you can paint inside and it's a landscaper.
Yep.
So anything that a landscaper does.
We've had an issue with a building that's being constructed now, a rather large house. And their contention is they're working inside, that the house is only,
If they're
it's
in,
only partially, it's framed and it's plywooded, but it's not, it's all open. And so they've been working till 10 o'clock.
so you can call the police department and file a complaint. And the town is very keen on statistics. So they rely on homeowners calling to say something about a violation of a bylaw. So please call.
So, but again, to be clear, they are inside and it's making it worse because it's echoing,
Building has
It
to
is
be
empty.
closed in,
It has, yeah,
completely closed
has to
in.
be closed in.
so a painter can keep painting at night, things like that.
Right.
Things that don't require a saw, a drill.
But a mechanically operated saw or drill.
Yes.
What about hammering, just regular hammering?
Regular hammering, I do not believe would be, but
It's not in-
people don't use regular hammers anymore. They always use these
Nail gun.
nail guns.
Yeah,
But I guess the 2 points are that it has to do with mechanically operated tools, not other tools. And it's not just a blanket, you can't do anything. It's rather, the noise has to be plainly audible from 50 feet away. So if there are a lot of cars and people working and there's no noise, there's no problem. So it's a simplified, not talking about decibels or anything else. It's just plainly audible from 50 feet from where the property line or from 50 feet of where the source of the noise is. I'm not sure which.
You have to look at the bylaw,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
sound carries, so
Yeah.
50 feet isn't
Yeah.
really determinate.
So it doesn't have to be loud or soft, it's just plainly audible.
Well, it's nice that it covers the whole island,
Yes.
even though it's only just a small little tidbit of blessing, a little less noise. That's how you have to get things done in that time.
Helps.
And looking at it, I think it's very helpful that all of the work that the Wisconsin Civic Association put into responding to the concerns of the select board members by talking to people, gathering data, and I think, really putting out both the people who are positive and people who are against it and their concerns. That was very, very helpful. And a lot of it is just sort of showing up at the meeting. So that's good. And I don't know when we're waiting for, or they're waiting for a timeline for the annual town meetings. Because at that point, the select board will need to finish the work on this proposal and get it in the warrant. So there'll be more, I guess, more advocacy that will
Yeah,
probably.
I think they have to have it done by January.
Yeah.
Town does.
Or December,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because FinCom starts in
Yes.
December.
So
But
that,
it goes into the warrant, like they close the warrant
Yeah.
then, so we have the winter to work with it.
so that's to be continued, but thank you.
Okay.
So the last thing I think that we have on the agenda today is back to short-term rentals, and I think the rest are just gonna be, we're not gonna have time for it unless the PR committee has something to say.
No.
Yeah.
Did a great job. You got lots of kudos before you walk in.
Yes.
Yes.
And so let's see, so we put in there, I'll just give you sort of a big background, and Peter's been working on it, I know Kathy's been working on it from another point of view, and the STR, whether STRs will be allowed or not is percolating up for a decision at the next annual town meeting. And the select board is basically taking this sort of semi-hands-off approach that somebody else needs to come up with a solution that will garner 2/3 of the voters at the meeting's approval. Because a zoning bylaw, and this will require a zoning bylaw change, is what is required under the state law. A zoning bylaw which, to override the current land court decision, would specifically permit short-term rentals. And so there are a number of groups that have been trying to put something together that hopefully they can advocate, and 2/3 will support. The one that we put in there is one that I guess Tom Dixon has been working with the group with.
I'll just drag it over here.
Dixon and Iverson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I think what happened was the town. Okay, we're not gonna try to do mediation. There was the proposal that Peter McCausland gave to us last meeting. That's on one, just sitting out there. I don't know what's happening with that at all. But then the town decided that it was their responsibility for a town meeting next year, that the planning board should put something together because they had to put something out there that they could support. So what they did was Dave Iverson, who's the head of the planning board, and Tom Dixon, who was the member of the short-term rental work group on behalf of the town, they've been sort of working together offline, soliciting anybody who has input and thoughts and ideas on what should and shouldn't be in there and why, and so that they're trying to put something together. And what I put in the put in the packet that you can look through is not the Arthur Reed article that people were looking at before. Don't know what the status of that one is, but this is basically considering that and considering other people who've come to them and say, I'd like you to consider this. That's what they've come up with so far. And it basically does a couple of, I think it basically says that they want to have a zoning component and a general bylaw component. The reason is a couple of reasons. They've always said that. The planning board has always said you need to put the why here in zoning, and then you need to regulate it in a general bylaw. One of the reasons that town council clarified, which I wasn't aware of at all, was if you put operational requirements into zoning, such as limitations or that kind of thing, then it's not under chapter 123, which is the STR bylaw, and it therefore is not under the state statute. So any fine you were to levy on somebody for violating the rules in that piece that's in zoning is a $300 fine. That's it. You can't do anything. You can't file civil penalties. You can't take away their license for violations. You can only do that if it's in the general bylaw. So that's been one of the sticking points because certain people are not comfortable having it in the general bylaw because a majority can change it. So that's the thing. So what they've been doing is going back and forth between, so the zoning is pretty simple. And then there would be some rules, and that's what they're sort of negotiating with people in the background on what kinds of rules. Would it be maybe 70 days per year? Everybody gets that. Or if there's a difference, or maybe looking at, I think that one of the things that's in this one is the Sconset district, as well as the ROH, as well as one other.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I'm an SR10, my neighbor's an SR20, the person across the street's an SR20, the
Yeah.
other side's an SR10. So in Sconset, SR10s are intermingled with SR20s, and SR1s are no different than the SOH. So you have to put all of them together. If you took SR20s out, you're not solving anything.
Well, I don't agree with that, but let me go back, because that's getting overly technical, because I think there's some basic questions that everybody has to understand before one gets the actual rules and regulations and where they apply. And those, to me, those are, number one, the issue that we voted on years ago and that we've been steadfast behind is that with respect to the participation of this group in the STR controversy, the one thing that our red line is that there should not be a bylaw, whether it's a zoning bylaw or a general bylaw, that discriminates against non-voting taxpayers. We did legal research and actually came up with a basis for that. And I think at the time that we came up with this basis, which was that a discrimination of this nature would be a violation of the United States Constitution's Dormant Commerce Clause, which is a lot of technical jargon, but basically means you can't discriminate against the different entities that are involved in interstate commerce on the basis of whether they're, in-state or outstate people. That we educated the town council, who's now fully bought into this, and whatever Peter espoused it in the meetings of the group that met and came up with some reasonable solutions. And now seems to be a focus of those who are putting together this article, that it not discriminate against non-voting taxpayers, and which we welcome that. But if one looks at the different articles, this one does not appear to discriminate against non-voting taxpayers. The one that that another group that includes the McCausland, the Act Now people do, there's a lot of very, very dense verbiage, and so it's not clear that it does not discriminate against non-voting taxpayers. So we have a problem with that statute. But once you get beyond this discrimination issue, where our policy is there should be no discrimination, then the issue becomes, well, if there's a regulation, what should that regulation say? And we have stayed away from getting involved in that controversy. So what I'd hope to do today is to talk enough about what regulations might look like, and that's what you were getting into, Lynn, and who they might apply to see whether we should be involved, and if we're involved, do we have what's our position? So
I think we need to take it one step further back, though, which is if we accept the concept that our baseline was discrimination between residents and non-residents, and which has always been our sort of where we are. All right, so now the question is, do we go further? And that it seems to me is based on what is the tax law? I mean, the issue here is what is the tax loss to the town? I mean, if STRs are banned no matter what, at whatever level, there's going to be an impact on the town's revenues. And we haven't seen the data yet, and we're pushing for that. We want to see that because some groups are saying 777, whatever. What we need to know how much is coming in now without any limitation, and if there was a limitation, what would that effect be? And then is that a basis for us to determine, say, hey, that does affect us. That's going to, as non-residents, but we're going to have to pick up the tax tab somehow. But we may decide, so it seems to me we don't have time today. We need to spend some time on this. Is that do we want to go further? In other words, do we want to go into this further than the straight discrimination, the Dormant Commerce Clause, and talk about the tax effects, which may or may
financial impact.
Exactly, which may or may not be a reason for us to then weigh in. And if you do that, then of course that may take you to the next step, which is the number of turnovers, number of days, because obviously the number of days will affect the tax revenues. I mean, you have to think about all those things. So I should think what we should do is, if I may suggest, is those are on the table. Let's let's reserve some time at the next meeting to sort of talk about all this. The good news is there's not going to be a town meeting in September, or November, so we're going to have some time.
There could be.
Well, it's pretty late now in the game. I don't think.
No, there could be.
The last-
Submits
Yeah, but there's a,
citizens article.
yeah, what's the deadline on that?
There isn't. You can submit it anytime you want and the town has to hold one in 45 days.
Okay, what's that? So it's all right. Okay, well,
So
so
you
far,
don't-
but so
don't
far
know.
there doesn't appear to be one.
I think we should probably devote an entire meeting for this, because it's very serious if we want to go ahead and support something. My concern also is we've got two groups now. Why aren't they working together? Is it a political thing? You've got Arthur Reed, Peter McCausland, and I don't know, and then you've got over here a separate group.
No, I think
No,
that
Aren't they
Dave Iverson and Tom are talking to the Arthur Reed group as well as
Good.
everybody else who has an interest.
Good,
So they're,
because there should be one group, otherwise we've got fractures.
Well, there
already
appear to be
in the-
three. I mean, I would say right now there's sort of three groups is what I see. You see, I mean, well, in three different interests, and you're gonna, you've got the McCausland on McCausland on one side, you've got Carolyn Belzer on the other side, and then you've got Iverson and Dixon trying to find that sort of a middle ground. I think they all realize, I mean, you'd like to think that they all realize that if they all go in separately, they're all gonna go down to defeat.
Again.
and NNF is another group and they're at the Board of Health meeting, which I listened to this week.
NNF
Yes,
is what is that?
Board of Health,
No, NNF is what?
Nantucket Neighborhoods First. So that's the charity Ben's and those group
Yeah.
that split off from Act Now. Their big thing right now is enforcement, which I think is a very supportive issue. I don't know that anybody
It's against it.
is against
Yeah.
it. So they had really big discussions on the Board of Health, if anybody wants to listen to that one, the other night about the, making sure the enforcement happens, because that'll make a lot of people comfortable or more people comfortable if the enforcement is taking place, like it should be. And
I don't think that's feasible yet. To put everything on the Board of Health.
Well, no, the
There's
board-
so many issues with
it
this.
has nothing to do with the board, the enforcement of the things that are there are,
So let's,
The me-
again,
the head of the-
we have all these issues. and
the
we're-
Board of
we're
Health said it's
talking
not
about-
an issue for them.
Yeah.
He was very clear in that, so.
He said initially he was, he did
Scott-
not have the staff.
And
Last
then
night.
Patty.
Last night he said.
I agree that it's within our purview of what the economic result is. But before we can have an effective discussion about that, we need some data, and that data is, I can tell you right now, probably pretty complex. You've got the question of, basically everything I've heard says short-term rentals will be allowed during the peak season. So your question really then devolves to what are short-term rentals during the off-season? I suspect not much. The next question is state income tax impact. So whether you're local or not, you're gonna pay state tax. What proportion of that gets back to the island? Don't know the answer to that one.
I have some answers.
Okay, great.
So, I tried to figure this out because everything is pretty, as I understand the system, the state collects the tax and then it rebates some portion of that tax.
Which tax?
to the island. The STR tax, the STR tax. And then in the budget, I have the proposed preliminary budget here. There's for income, let me see if I've got it here.
Yeah, this is all published in the budget. I have it all in a spreadsheet. If anybody wants me to send that out, it's got all of that stuff. It's town.
The taxes sort of rolled into general meals and this and excise tax line. At the town meeting the other night, I took my estimate of what the actual just pure tax that the town receives through the state for the STR rentals that are actually reported and paid for and asked Brian, the town, I was in charge of what his number was, and it was about the same as mine, which is approximately $8.5 million.
And how
Wait.
big is the total town budget?
That's approximately, and when you talk about town budget, there are like three different budgets. There's a school budget, there's a town budget, and then there's this budget to pay for all things like big capital expenditure budgets. And so that the town budget, it's about 5% of the town budget, which is not an insignificant
But
percentage.
do we understand the temporal quality of that? Because
So
there would be
that's the next
short-term
question.
rentals over the summer.
I'm
Yeah.
at,
The
what I'd
town
like
budget
to,
is only 160 million?
163 million, something
It's
like
150,
that.
but that doesn't include the zones. There's another 150 that you add on top of that, which is the separate, I forget what you call them. You know, the airport is
Oh, taxable. Yeah.
I forget, there's a name for
Yeah,
what they are. It's
really
150 plus.
complicated.
I always use the
It's
number,
huge.
I saw the number
Yeah.
300.
It's about 300, yeah.
I think we focus on the 150 or $60 million, which is sort of the town's what I'll call the town's discretionary funding on keeping the town operating, minus the school and minus some special things that are big capital projects where, you know, they have to borrow money and that becomes a separate thing.
How much is
Like the
collected?
enterprise
How
zones.
much does the
Yeah.
town collect on property taxes?
Hmm?
Do we know how much the town, the reason I'm asking
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is if, because let's say the $8 million goes away. There's no,
That's the question.
there's no
But it has to
short-term
be
rentals
refined.
allowed.
Yeah,
Then the
yeah.
town has to make up
Right.
for that amount to serve for the police department, whatever it is. That would come into property taxes.
That's the only place for it to come.
That's the only place it would come in.
Yeah, or
So how
you
much
cut
would property
services.
taxes go up? If we needed to raise $8 million more of property taxes, how much would that increase our
Okay,
taxes?
so, but I don't think it's gonna be $8 million. So let me just go, sort of go
No,
down.
but that's the
number.
number you came up with, that's the number.
But
to-
that's,
Finance
if,
committee
if,
came
if there is not a bylaw passed that permits STR and the existing court, decision is maintained, and it was not overturned on appeal, that's the amount of money. You start there. That's the STR right now is providing, depending on the year, 7.5 to 8.5 million, more recently, 8.5 million of the town's general budget revenue. And then the question that was just being posed was, well, if there were STRs during the high season, and however you define the high season, what would be left of it? And so I'm planning to go back to Brian Turbot and ask the following question. My understanding is the town receives its money from the states on a quarterly basis. And so if indeed the third quarter payment represents, you know, it's gonna be a little bit broader than
We
the
already did
season,
that.
we should be able to get a number.
But
We have the number from the town. It's right. I can show it to anybody who
The
wants it.
third
Right from
quarter
the town.
payment?
Yes,
How much is the
How much
the
is it?
payment?
third quarter payment. What
It's
year?
not much.
Last year?
Yeah.
Last year, yeah.
So.
Uh, last year was 2.9 million. The June through August was 3.5 million.
June through August.
June to August, so 3.5, so it's less than half.
That's about, yeah, a little, slightly.
Less than half.
Yeah, but we
Less
have to
than-
also find out why, because that
The other
sort of
question is
big-
state income tax, and because whether you have to pay state income tax on your short-term rental income, whether you're a resident here or not.
Right.
Mhm.
So, and a portion of that, you know, presumably finds its way back to Nantucket. And
Probably pretty
That's a
small.
little murkier, but
Yeah,
that's.
we know what the total state-
Percent of whatever that.
And there's also
Yeah.
the community impact fee that's paid by short-term rentals with more than one
Well, I was
property.
hoping we'd be able to keep it really simple, because you know, when you add in all that, you know, the number's gonna be
It may not
bigger.
be worth.
But it's just so hard to do, and then you go to just the over economic issue here. Which
What
is that-
happens to the meals taxes if there's less people on the
But-
restaurants?
But I think the key thing is it seems like the question is not, are we just gonna get rid of short-term rentals? And
Right.
I know there are people who advocate for that, but there probably would, it seems to be in almost every likely result, there's going to be some short-term rentals allowed during a defined high season period. So,
So I think what I would like to do is try to get some data to square that away. It seems that we have it, but we need to look at it and make sure we're understanding it correctly. And then, it's really the question that I'm proposing is right down that alley, which is sort of the following issues, which requires more data, which we're not going to get. And that is, if you were to take in consideration tax revenue to the town, how would you want to define that season? To make sure that you're not cutting it too much or anything else. It's another thing we don't know. We don't know, for example, in this proposal up here, you would be limited to 70 calendar days of short-term rentals annually, which would include that season. And then there are other in-season limitations. We have no idea how many days people who actually normally rent.
and that's the odd contradiction here is
Yeah.
the 70 days, if you put it right in the middle of the high season, isn't gonna help you with the problem of congestion and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
If you let people rent in April, people probably aren't gonna care a whole lot because there's not gonna be a lot of.
Right. But it raises the other question, which of course, the McCausland group, you've heard it, I asked them directly, is this gonna be in a zoning, are you vehemently against this being in a zoning bylaw? Absolutely, it can't have a general bylaw dealing with these issues. Well, of course, then you're stuck. And the point is, you need this data, you need to see how this stuff develops over time so that you can begin to make adjustments in out years if you need to. And you can't do that with a zoning, you can't do that necessarily with a zoning bylaw.
And his worry is the 50% could be reversed.
Yeah, on the date, because you want to cap it anyway, I think.
The other problem with it being in the zoning is that you only can fine people $300.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
So
that's another thing.
So basically, you don't have any.
There's no teeth.
I suggest can we come back? Can we?
I think we can come back, but just a question for Kathy, in case she knows this. Is there existing data from the information that's been collected for the last year, is it? And, in this.
That's the problem,
thing.
is the town bylaw requires that people report the usage, they're registered, but they have not provided a means to submit it. Right, which is why I think enforcement and so that was also mentioned at the Board of Health. We're now at the point where we can now start collecting that. So they don't have it, they're planning to collect it, and that'll have the actual usage. If you believe that everyone's registered, I think they said there were 1,357 registered short-term rentals on the island right
But you're not
now.
gonna have that data for at least a year.
Right.
But we're not gonna have data for another year, so.
Unless you do a survey and try to get.
Right, so the only other data that we have is what the short-term rental work group had, which, may be accurate, may not, maybe it shows a pattern of how people rent, and you can see those, and we have those are all from the short-term rental group, so we could share that's all town published data. I can share all of the town and state published data and cite all the sources. There's no commentary, it's just here it is.
Where
then
does the
people can
data
look at
come
it.
from that talks about the usage so far in short-term rentals?
That was only up through when the short-term rental work group.
But
worked.
with state data,
The state has numbers.
Yeah.
That I can read you what the numbers, what do those numbers mean? Who knows?
No.
Right? I mean, the revenues last year, summer revenue for 2023 was 4.8 million. And then summer 2024 was 3.5 million. It went down by a lot.
Yeah.
Why?
What
Who knows?
revenue is that?
That's the revenue that comes back to Nantucket from the state STR tax.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, so that's sort of the only semi-reliable information we have. Patty,
Semi-reliable.
Patty has had her hand.
But what does it mean is the question.
I just wanted to step back and say,
Yeah.
what's relevant for this group? And maybe it's relevant since these people want to talk to everybody.
Mhm.
Why not bring them in here and let them hear some, because you guys have spent so much time in the minutia. They could listen
By
to-
Dave and Tom.
Yeah, well, we don't need to bring Bob, the whole committee doesn't need to take the time to do that, and we can, we're meeting.
Well, I think it would be
would be very
educational
helpful if we heard
and if a non-voter asked about where we stand. We don't have any answer to that, and maybe having these people here might bring more. Non-voters interested in coming to listen to what they had to say. I mean, the more communication we have, the more educated we are. And that's our only card to play, is that we can bring people in to tell us stuff. We can't really
We're
affect,
gonna ask people to
do
talk.
much more than that.
And
We can invite people.
the question was obviously is gonna be whether, you know, the select board wants us to come to them, not select, in this case, it's really the planning board. Wants us to come to them, or whether they should come to us, which is a sticky question. Now, having that
Possibly
answer
should.
asked,
Yeah.
invited that, and I don't know the answer to it, but it strikes me that where we are from this discussion today is that there's interest beyond the mere discrimination issue in the group.
Whose idea was this thing, the short-term historic district? Where did that come from?
No idea,
Come from
No
the Civic
idea.
League?
No idea.
no.
Do any of the other communities want it or not?
I'm in
I
this.
have no idea where it
This
came
is
from.
coming from the people who came to Tom and Dave must have suggested this. I don't know who it was, but all I did was he shared with me, here's what we have so far.
This is sausage making, right?
Right.
And then so,
And Lynn, you're right, it's crazy.
I'm happy
Yeah.
by
And
Tom did.
I really don't, I don't think we should come to any kind of decision about supporting something that, if you will, is not even baked yet. We really, there are several
We're
different
not making any of
factors.
this now.
No, but I mean,
Just learning.
you're suggesting, learning is very important. Education is very important. I don't think at this point, we really should even talk about what should we do beyond, how it's affecting us yet, because we don't even know what they're gonna present to us.
I think Kathy and Peter can be our conduit.
I think that we are wasting our time. The only thing we should care about, there are bigger problems that this island has. Food insecurity and housing for two. Short-term rentals, the only thing we should care about is that non-resident taxpayers are treated equally to resident to residents than taxpayers in terms of how the short-term rental regulations play out. Where we shouldn't care about whether it's 70 days or 100 days or 20 days
I
or
agree.
2 days.
I agree.
That's not our reason for, that's not, from my standpoint, not a major issue that we should worry about. There are bigger issues that we should worry about and spend our time trying to have some impact on.
okay, so the original idea, behind non-discrimination basically feeds into what you said. And that is, if the voters knew that what they were voting for applied to themselves, they would be more reasonable in their regulations. If the voters think that they can basically, just lay it all, have somebody else pay for it, so to speak, by discommoding or disenfranchising the non-voters who would otherwise rent, that's what they're gonna do, because that's basically free riding. So our first position basically would be, so long as we just focus on non-discrimination and then let them decide, knowing full well that whatever they decide applies to them as well to us, is very helpful, I think, to non-voters. But then you draw into it the actual details of what's being done. And I'm hearing from my colleague over here that if this were enacted, she'd be very, very unhappy about that. And I suspect there are a lot of other non-voters who might be unhappy about it too.
Is it because she's a non-voter or because it doesn't apply to her in her neighborhood?
No, it's because it applies to her in her neighborhood, specifically
But
to
not
her side
because
of the
she's,
street.
not because she's a non-voting taxpayer, it's just because of where she lives. So that's not our issue, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
If it applies to her,
but we heard from the sewer
Where she
fellow
lives.
today that there are no voters that live out in Wisconsin, basically. They have to, repopulate the bacteria every year in Wisconsin sewer field. You know, after the,
Therefore, then it's not our issue.
it's after the town meeting.
But it affects our property tax.
Then it's not our issue. There's no vote.
So I guess,
Not gonna solve this today.
yeah, so why don't we continue this to the next week? And hopefully we can organize
More
some
data.
of this economic stuff a little bit better.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say about the economics, we don't need a precise answer, we just need to know, is it bigger than bread box?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think it would also be good to, you know, based on what people are seeing out there, if you have a list of, you know, even if there's non-discrimination, I'm really concerned about A, B, C, D, and E. That would probably be a good.
Peter?
Yeah.
Even if it is harmful to the economy, the question is, wouldn't it be better if the finance committee came out and said, we don't like that because it's harmful to the economy? And then the advisory committee said, we agree with the finance committee that they're concerned about it.
Before.
We shouldn't be the one worrying about that. That's the finance committee's job, not ours.
But so
Right.
we have had communications with members of the finance committee.
Right.
Because this legislation is what, a 24/7 job, essentially. If you have a voice, you gotta use it, from time to time and not be a stranger who they've never met before. You saw that in action when Matt Fee was here. There are a lot of people who were gonna be showing up any place he is to advocate their issues. Sometimes it's easier for the finance committee to take a position if they know there's generalized agreement with that position. Or if they know that there's a real concern with something they're being asked to do. And so I think that this idea of waiting until the blade is coming down, you know, is not a good idea.
By the way,
But the
By the way,
three blades coming down.
don't you forget that the last time the finance committee had to deal with that tricky issue, they said, what do we care? The non-voted, the people who don't have a vote, don't vote, so we can pass it.
The finance
Yeah.
committee
That
didn't
happened,
say
that's-
that. A witness before the finance committee said it.
Yes.
There's a new, and Jill Beef is now the new chair, I think, of the
Yeah,
finance committee.
yeah,
Together.
and her subcommittee had basically
Been outside.
taken the same position we'd taken. So anyway, that's all said and done. Yes,
Just one quick thing, I mean, I don't know if it's a quick thing, but the only reason I, as a non-voter, really have paid any attention whatsoever is an issue of corporations coming in to neighborhoods and buying homes. And I think that whole issue is across the country. So I can't sit here and say that non-voters aren't interested in this whole discussion. I don't think it's been defined enough to draw them in and make sure they understand what's at stake here and what isn't. So I don't think we should just say that non-voters aren't interested in.
yeah,
And
no,
it's-
I think we are interested. The question is whether we take a position,
Right.
but also on the corporation.
Corporations are already out.
Corporations are already
They're
out,
out.
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, except for they're not. I mean, down the street from me is that's been closed down, I think, but.
Yeah, so they're not giving them permits. And if you call and say that's a corporation, they will shut them down.
Well, except for that's still in litigation down the street from me, so that could change with. And isn't everybody saying, oh, we don't want any more, lawsuits, we're trying to avoid that. Well, it's gonna be a lawsuit until it gets solved.
Yeah, but I think
So-
as far as the town law goes,
Oh, sure.
as it currently sits, it's that you cannot operate an STR if you're a corporation.
Right.
And
That's-
so
Why are
you've
there
won.
and why are
You've
there
won.
lawsuits?
And the question is, you don't want to see that.
The lawsuits are not over whether it's a corporation. Lawsuits are whether or not you can rent, period. It's not.
Yeah, it has to be a hosted stay is the ruling. You
That's
have to be
okay.
living in your house and renting rooms in your house. It's the only thing that's permitted right now according to that.
Well, one down.
Yeah.
Street from me is still pending.
So I think we probably could use a motion to adjourn.
So-
So, but before I do that, hold on.
I thought that's what you asked.
I can either, leave us pretty on, because we're now, this is a world record long
Yes.
meeting.
Oh.
Not invite a speaker, which I think my first choice would have been the land bank person. Whether or not she could come, we have no idea, but we'll just not invite and then really do this more in depth the next time around. Or,
Do what? Do short-term.
discuss short-term rental, yeah.
We could, look.
I
yeah,
can pass the publicly available data out to
we have
everybody.
time on this. I think I would vote, if we can get the land bank person, there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of issues to talk about.
Having.
I'll invite her.
Let's do that.
Motion is to dismiss.
Don't move. Unanimous, done. Thank you.
Let's go.
So, Lynn.
Yeah.
Gene?
So you and I have the exact opposite issue because I'm in the same situation you are where.
Good.
I'm in the.
As a meeting with the financial. Public golf course or-
I do that every second.
I see it's getting to tea already.
Between.
Something wants to be-
And I,
Yeah, it'll be cloudy in there.